ADA did that. ADA is a coin that went to like a little over $1 in 2018. And then 3 years later, basically almost exactly 3 years later, it went to, well, 3.5, it went to $3. So it did a 3x on the prior all-time high. Like if we can turn this train around and start trending higher, and we're looking at, say, the asset class as a whole going to, let's call it 10 trillion in the next 18 months or something, then I think you could easily see a Polkadot.
Welcome back, everybody, to Altcoin Daily. Which altcoins are your favorite? I'm talking to you. I'm talking to you out there, Benjamin Cowen, guest of our channel today. This guy's got a great YouTube channel, a great presence on Twitter, nuclear engineer, PhD. Benjamin Cowen today we're going to go through some of his favorite altcoins, some of the altcoins you need to have on your radar in cryptocurrency in 2022. And Benjamin Cowen is going to update us on all of this today. Benjamin, how are you doing today, buddy?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to come on the show and talk to you guys about crypto.
Great to have you on, man. I guess just initial thoughts. I mean, what are your feelings towards the state of altcoins today?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think, and we sort of talked about this with respect to Bitcoin, but it's kind of like Bitcoin's at an inflection point right now where it's like it's going to hold these levels or it's not. And if it doesn't, then that's where all Bitcoin valuations, that's where they tank, right? Like that's where it gets really bad if it doesn't. But if it holds, altcoins are still, they still potentially have room to run for a while. So I would say altcoins they're riskier right now than they were in, say, like 2021, when, especially like late 2020, early 2021, when Bitcoin was just going absolutely parabolic. And we know, we've played the game many times. A lot of times altcoins rally after Bitcoin does, right? So I think the main risk right now is Bitcoin going to get that rally or is it not? So if it doesn't, then obviously alts will underperform Bitcoin most likely. And if it does, then we'll likely see altcoins lag behind Bitcoin for a little bit and then probably take back over. So it's kind of the risk on the altcoin market at the moment.
Thinking about the next couple of years, the rest of this cycle, or potentially going into the next one, however it plays out, is there a sector of the crypto altcoin market that interests you the most? So like in 2021, we had Ethereum and alternative L1s, we had NFTs. In 2020, we had DeFi. So whether we're talking about DeFi, L1s, Ethereum L2s, play to earn gaming, metaverse, stable coins, stuff like that, is there any particular sector that really interests you?
Yeah, so I think having some exposure into multiple sectors is actually the best way to go. And the reason I say that is because they move cyclically. If you think about it, I mean, you guys remember the DeFi summer of 2020. So if you had been fully allocated to, only layer ones, you may have missed out on some of the gains that we saw happen in projects like Chainlink and that kind of stuff. But then in 2021, I mean, it was all about NFTs. It was all about layer ones. And essentially 2021 was essentially this money ball going around from one layer one to another, right? So one would pump for a while, like Cardano and Polkadot pumped in late 2020 and early 2021. Then in sort of the middle of 2021, you had Avalanche doing really well. Avalanche also did really well early on. But Solana was another one that did absolutely amazing in mid 2021. And then in late 2021 and early 2022, you had Terra Luna, right? That was the one that was sort of outperforming. So I think the right answer to your question is it's probably good to have some exposure amongst different sectors. I think the ones that I'm most bullish on right now, and when I say right now, I mean over the next couple of years, maybe 2 to 3 years, are layer ones. I think that layer ones are a great place to be. And the reason is because I kind of see the future as a multi-chain world. I don't think it's just going to be like one chain. I think we're going to have like multiple chains. It's kind of like, like if you use a computer, like I don't care what computer you guys are using or what operating system you're using. You don't care what operating system I'm using, but we can still communicate easily. Maybe that's what it's going to be like with the cryptoverse in the future, right? Maybe you'll have some type of like interoperability amongst various chains. So I would say layer ones is a great place to be as long as you have the right time horizon. And I have to think DeFi is going to surge back at some point. Like the reason I say that is because a lot of the DeFi projects, I mean, some of them have done well recently, but a lot of them have just gotten hammered, for especially against ETH for the last couple of years. And so I'd like to think there's some cyclical nature there, and that we will see them kind of come back again, and the DeFi asset class will grow even more. With regards to the metaverse, I do think there's some interesting plays there. I think the main problem with the metaverse right now, in terms of what people are thinking about it, I think we're a little early. I'm not saying there aren't going to be some great investments there. I'm sure there will be, but I also think we're a little bit early to what a lot of people are sort of thinking about with regards to the metaverse. I've checked out some of the different places you can go, and I mean, so far, to be completely honest, I'm not that impressed. Maybe things will get better as time goes on. And then the last one I'll briefly mention is the gaming sector. I think the gaming sector is going to be big with crypto. And one of the things I've said before, and this is kind of where I stand on the gaming sector, is I think the main thing that crypto has been missing is, a lot of times when you see these games pop up, not all of them, but a lot of times it's crypto people creating a game and then incorporating crypto into it. But what we really like to see is, we'd like to see gaming people make their games and then actually incorporate crypto into that. And that's really how you're going to get more adoption, I think, in crypto, where you see actual like really good experts at building games and building those communities incorporate crypto into that. So I think that the gaming is maybe like play to earn as well. I think the gaming industry is going to be pretty big over the next several years with crypto.
Definitely listed a lot of major trends. Let's just use that piggyback off that, and let's go into some charts. A couple of your favorite L1s or whatever you are most interested in right now.
There's a few different ones. And one of the things I think we have to constantly do is measure their performance against Ethereum, right? And say, if it can't outperform a blue chip, which I would consider Ethereum and Bitcoin the blue chips, right? If it can't outperform that, why do you hold it, right? Why are you buying it? You're just taking on more risk, you're getting less return. Avalanche is a great example of a coin that has outperformed Ethereum, and I mean, it might be an oscillator, meaning maybe it oscillates between this range. But one of the nice things is that it's been at the top of this range for a while now. So I would say it's an oscillator at worst, meaning, yeah, it could go back down, but if it does, I would actually be somewhat confident that it would oscillate back up to the upside. So I look at Avalanche, and you can see, against Ether, it's up 63% since inception. It's up 95% over the last year, up 71% over the last 6 months. Over the last couple of months, it's down about 10% or so, but it's not, it's an oscillator at worst, right? It's an oscillator at worst. There's other projects that are similar, oscillators at worst. This is Cardano. So you can kind of see it's an oscillator. It goes up and it goes down against ETH. Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down, but the bottom on it doesn't really change. I mean, just ignore sort of the launch. If you ignore the launch, because it's always somewhat fishy right when it launches, because everyone's sort of just rushing in, you can kind of see it oscillates against Ethereum. And so I look at these trends and say, well, if it comes back down to this level, that's probably going to be a good opportunity on Cardano. Again, this is not the Cardano USD chart. This is the ADA USD. It's ADA ETH, meaning ADA's valuation against ETH could go down even if ADA USD stays constant if Ether goes up. So Cardano is another example. Polkadot is one that I like, but if I'm being brutally honest, it's not looking so hot right now. I mean, I would like to think it's an oscillator, but it's also recently just put in a new low against Ethereum. So that one is not looking as good as I thought it would. But then you have other ones, and Solana is one that a lot of people did really well on. It has been bleeding against ETH somewhat recently, like over the last 3 to 6 months, down about 20% against Ethereum. Luna is one that's up a lot, 34% over its lifetime, but over the last 2 years, it's up 2,400% against ETH. So, all of these layer ones that we're looking at, not all of them, but a lot of them, they're oscillators or they trend up, right? And so you can see Luna ETH is actually trending higher. Doesn't really seem like an oscillator at this point. It just seems like it's gaining market share. Avalanche ETH it's trying to, like AVAX is trying to, but it hasn't made that breakout yet. And then the other cool thing that you can look at, which I don't really see a lot of people look at that often, is to actually go look at valuations of alts against other alts and see kind of how they're performing. So you can kind of look at the valuation of Avalanche against Polkadot, or you could look at, say, the valuation of ADA against, I don't know, Avalanche, right? And you can kind of see which ones are outperforming for a period and which ones are underperforming. And it could be that there's this money ball that goes from one to the other, right? And, you know, one goes wild for a while, and then it cools off, and then another one does. We saw that happen in late 2020 and 2021. So, you know, these are the charts I mainly look at with trying to figure out if I want to be in a layer one or not. I try to figure out, okay, do I want to deploy capital? Let me first see, does it bleed against ETH? You know, if that's all it does, you got to stay away from it, generally speaking. If it's an oscillator, then you kind of want to try to time those bottoms before it goes back up to the upside.
So, I mean, I know that you have been giving good data on Polkadot for quite some time. I think you even own some Polkadot.
Yep.
Based on what you just said, are you selling your Polkadot because it made new lows and you're, you know, managing your risk? Are you moving profits from AVAX into Polkadot or into Cardano? Or like, what's the takeaway for me who's kind of interested, who owns some Polkadot, owns some AVAX, owns some Cardano, and interested in, you know, thinking to the future?
Right. That's a good question. Well, some of the things that I do, and to give you like a brief history with it, like kind of going with what happened with Chainlink, you know, I mean, and I'll get to Polkadot in a minute, but just because it sort of played out already, I was very bullish on Chainlink at, you know, when it was $1, right? And it was $1, it was $1 not a couple of years ago. And it did really well, right? And I was accumulating it. It did really well. It was outperforming Ethereum, and then it stopped, right? Like, and then in the summer of 2020, when we had the DeFi summer of 2020, it hasn't done anything since then. So, you know, with projects like that, when we start underperforming, I'll say the one thing that I start doing immediately is when I see that it's in like a confirmed downtrend, is that I stop accumulating it at least. So I don't really want to tell people if they should, you know, if they should buy or sell, but I will say personally for me, I haven't sold it, but I will say personally for me, what I like to do is I stop accumulating it as much. And the reason is not because I don't believe in it, right? It's not because I don't believe in it. It's just because I see it as a risk that's not paying the return that I want for the risk that I'm taking on. So you have to consider your risk adjusted returns. Ethereum is a safer play than any other L1, in my opinion. Again, a lot of other people are going to disagree with that, but in my opinion, Ether is the safest layer one play. And so why would I keep putting money into something that is showing me that just wants to underperform ETH? You know, like if that's all it wants to do, I'm much better off not even thinking about it and just throwing that money into Ether, because I'm more confident that Ether will hit those new all-time highs than, you know, than necessarily a lot of these altcoins. You guys were around in 2018 in crypto. You saw what happened. I mean, a lot of the top 10 back then, you know, 2022 participants might not even recognize anymore, right? Because they sort of just went into oblivion, right? They just sort of dwindled away into oblivion. And so, you know, it's not to say that they can't surge back, but I'd like to see them actually show a little bit of strength before looking at something like that. Again, Polkadot, it's at a testy area right now, right? Because it did just put in a new low. It's hard to know if it's a fake out or not. If this trend continues, then the argument is that you're probably safer off assuming that it's going to continue. Okay, so if we don't see some type of strength here in the next few weeks, which basically means Bitcoin needs to be strong, if Polkadot doesn't see some type of strength and show that it's an oscillator, then I think you're better off assuming the trend is just down. And a great way to look at that is to look at a project like Litecoin, which I don't own. And you can see, like, once it gets in that downtrend where it starts putting in lower lows, it just keeps putting in lower lows, right? Like we keep thinking like, oh, maybe it's going to turn around. And then it just never does. And then you find yourself being 97.5% down against Ether during one of the best crypto bull markets we've seen. So you have to be careful about some of these projects that bleed against Ether. I'm still watching Polkadot. I still have my position. I'm waiting to see what it does. If it can sort of outperform Ether again, then maybe I'd pick some up. But I'm not going to accumulate something that's just kind of slowly bleeding against Ethereum.
And I think like the takeaway for me, and maybe just like Polkadot bulls in general that are listening to this and being like, whoa, you don't understand. Gavin Wood, Ethereum co-founder, this is going to have legs long term. I think what you're saying is you just are waiting to see a trend change where you don't have to be exactly early to the party, but you'd rather be a little later than too early to that
exactly
party.
Like I'm a Polkadot bull. I mean, I was talking about it on my channel when it was $3 and saying like I think this thing has legs. You put it perfectly. I don't want to catch a falling knife, right? Like I have a position in Polkadot, but I don't just want to put money into something that is showing me it's just going to bleed. So I would say what I would like to see, I'd like to see it bounce back up. I'd rather pay a bit of a premium on it and not get it at the bottom if I actually think it's returning to some level of strength, right? But if I just keep waking up 1 week after another and the .ether valuation just keeps going down and down and down, I'd rather not just keep dollar cost averaging into a project bleeding against E, if that makes sense.
Do you think, what was Polkadot's all-time high? And
like 55, 60, I don't know, something like that.
Do you have a potential target for if Polkadot breaks 50, 55,000, where it could go?
If Bitcoin breaks 55?
No, if Polkadot breaks all-time highs, you have any thoughts on where it could go?
Yeah, I mean, like if we can get back, if we can turn this train around, and start trending higher, and we're looking at, say, the asset class as a whole going to, let's call it 10 trillion in the next 18 months or something, then I think you could easily see a Polkadot, at a couple $100, right? I mean, you're talking about like a 3x on its prior all-time high. ADA did that. ADA is a coin that went to like a little over $1 in 2018, and then 3 years later, basically almost exactly 3 years later, it went to 3.5. It went to $3. So it did a 3x on the prior all-time high. So I think that's somewhat reasonable for it to go up to those levels if we get another bull market, right? I mean, if we actually see another bull market surge and Bitcoin goes north of 100K, then you could see those valuations for Polkadot. But I should be clear, those valuations for Polkadot are almost assuredly not going to happen if Bitcoin's less than 6 figures, right? So like if Bitcoin is 50K, a lot of these altcoin projects, they're not going to be able to make it to several $100 billion market cap if Bitcoin itself is only just above a several $100 billion market cap. So Bitcoin sort of sets the limits on these things. So if Bitcoin goes to 2 to 4 trillion, then it would allow some of the smaller layer, or some of the layer ones, to go to, say, several $100 billion market caps. But if Bitcoin itself is coming in at less than 1 trillion, which is where it is right now, it just simply does not support these valuations right now.
Yeah, I would love to know, Benjamin, you were really good back in 2021 with taking profits. Like, well, everybody else was like waiting for 100K BTC to take profits. Like you were just, dollar cost averaging out, saying, hey, just in case. And that was a great call back then. For you personally today, are you increasing your cash or USD position? Are you increasing your Bitcoin position, or are you increasing your altcoin position? What's your strategy today?
Right now, so the last 6 months, I have not been buying alts, to be completely honest. The last time I bought any altcoin was back in, I bought, one of them did well, one of them didn't. So I'll just be honest, right? There's no reason to lie. I bought Luna and Solana. So the one that did well, I bought Luna at $40, and then it went to 100. I took my initial investment out at 100. Not because I don't necessarily believe in it, but I kind of recognize that I was late to the game with Luna. Like you can't win them all, right? So I was late to the game, and I just wanted to get out my initial investment and say, you know what, I'm just going to let the rest ride. I also picked up some Solana at $200 or something, and that one is down 50%. So that was the last time I bought altcoins, and that was a while back. I haven't bought any recently. By the way, I don't consider Ethereum an altcoin. I should say that when I'm talking about altcoins, even though I know by the strictest definition it is. I'm not going to try to argue against that. But I've mainly been doing 3 things. Okay, so I've mainly been, since November, I've been stacking Bitcoin, stacking sats, of course. I just sort of always do that as long as the risk level is below a certain risk level, right? So if the risk level is below 0.5, which it is right now, I just buy Bitcoin. I weight it based on where the risk is. So I'm DCAing in some. If we were to drop to say 30K, then I would go in a lot heavier, right? Than what I currently am. I periodically buy ETH, but not every week. I would say once every 2 or 3 weeks or so, I pick up some Ether. And then I have been saving some cash for the last 6 months. And the main reason I've been saving cash is because I think that the market as a whole, it still remains risk off, right? I mean, look at the trends in the US dollar currency index. It's just straight up. And that's what we saw in 2018. That's what we saw in 2014. That's what we saw in late 2011. And all of those times, it was a risk off market. And so I think that the thing to look for is the US dollar currency index going to experience, say, some type of blow off top? Okay, so it had that in 2017 where it rolled back down, and we know what happened in 2017, right? The bull market that kind of changed everything for a lot of people with crypto. It rolled over in 2020, so 3 years later. I mean, we can dubiously extrapolate if we want to. Maybe the next one will be 2023, right? Just 2017, 2020, 2023. So I look at it like this. Like right now, I think having some cash on hand makes the most sense. And to have a position in Bitcoin and ETH. I do have some altcoins because I didn't sell all of my positions. I do have some altcoins, but it represents a smaller percentage of my portfolio than it did in 2021. So like in 2021, I was much heavier altcoins because we knew it was just going parabolic, right? And Bitcoin was not doing anything. So altcoins were where you wanted to be. Right now, the risk is high that Bitcoin puts in a lower low, or I always should say it's high, but it's possible, right? It's possible that Bitcoin could put in a lower low. And if it does, I just want to protect against the downside risk on altcoins, because we saw what happened in 2018 when alt Bitcoin valuations basically just bled like crazy. So I'm sort of protecting against the downside there. So I'd say the 3 main things that I've been doing: Bitcoin accumulation, some Ether accumulation, but not as much, and then making sure to have a cash position in case there is a capitulation.
Benjamin Cowen, thank you so much for jumping on our stream today. Everybody from the Altcoin Daily audience, have you subscribed to Ben yet? Why not? What are you doing? He has great info, great charts, PhD, giving you the alpha. Benjamin, final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Yeah, look, these markets are brutal, and altcoins have been somewhat brutal the last 6 months, especially their valuations against Bitcoin. Not all of them, of course, but the important thing to remember is that when no one wants to buy them, it's when you want to buy them, right? If history is an indication, when we're in a bull market, no one ever wants to buy. And so I have to say, if you're new to crypto and your positions are down, if you went heavy into altcoins and you're down 50% or 70% or whatever it is, I mean, these guys can tell you as well, right? Stick with it, right? Go with the ones that you actually believe in and not just something that was shilled to you on Reddit or something, right? Go with the actual useful projects that are building something useful. And the secret to all of this stuff is really just time, right? Like time is the secret. Just be patient and wait. And we should see the bull market eventually return back. And then finally, if you are from my channel watching this, make sure you subscribe here to Aaron and Austin. They have a great YouTube channel. And I was watching them a lot back in 2018 when like no one else wanted to make videos, including myself. So make sure you subscribe.
Appreciate that, Benjamin. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.